you so much to Analytics Magazine for hosting this very, very important and vital discussion on inclusive leadership and diversity. It's a passion of mine. I've always believed deeply in the need for diversity and inclusion, to embrace the changes that our society is facing and bring them into our workplaces. For me, I think to just tell you briefly what diversity means, for me diversity is above all representational because it represents society. It's a corrective because it corrects the dominance of certain communities in workplaces. It is sustainable because I believe diversity teaches us coexistence. Above all, I believe diversity and inclusion are a moral good and a constitutional promise. So there can be no two ways about the need for diversity and inclusion, and there can be no actually argument on the fact that diversity is a tremendous social and economic resource. So those were just a few of my thoughts. Let's now go across to the panel and hear, first of all, what does diversity mean for you and what has been your personal journey? Before that, let me just tell you a bit about my personal journey. I am a journalist for over 30 years, and when I first joined the Times of India in Delhi, the Times of India did not even have a proper ladies' toilet. So that was the level of exclusion that women in journalism faced, that even basic facilities for women were not there. Today, women have many entry points into journalism, but then as you climb the ladder, the glass ceiling kicks in and you find you can't go any further. So journalism is very very embedded in the social power structure. So unless the social power structure changes radically, media and journalism, sadly, will still remain trapped in a certain amount of misogynism and hostility to women. So those are just very broad thoughts of mine. Let's turn it over to the panel and ask you, what does diversity mean for you and what is your personal journey? Let's start with Priyanka.
Okay. Very good evening to everybody here. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be amongst one of you here. It's different, like I was telling you, the number of people who are sitting here, and majority for once I want to say is women. So I think we deserve a round of applause to ourselves.
And I also think we deserve a round of applause to the fact that there's a ramp. You know, I mean, normally we would not have a ramp and we would have to climb and negotiate and all of that. So here we have inclusion as we speak.
I think the point of what we're here for today is to actually move from thought to action. And precisely, I think that's what we see in front of us today. Diversity is something very important to me because I'm a psychologist and we're all very culturally trained to be sensitive to the needs of others. If I were to take through a personal experience, I'm an entrepreneur too. When I went in for investments in 2016, I still remember one of the investors asking me, are you sure you don't have a male co-founder? I was asked that. I was also asked, how old? Just generally asking because, what after marriage, right? But very proudly, I want to say that my husband's seated here amongst all of us, and that's the kind of inclusion I have at the home we have created. So personal experiences to each one of us is going to mean different, and especially as a psychologist, the most important thing that I see is the perspective that we're all going to carry, to see the things that we want to blind ourselves from, and to look at the things that we want to include in our lives and in that of others. So a very warm welcome to everyone into this session. We would, of course, like to discuss a lot of important factors of why we're here today. Because as a psychologist, I want to see that mental health inclusivity is going to be a big part of our discussion. Because we're going to have a lot of show of hands when we're talking about mental health today, and I'm very sure about that. Yes. We're also going to be discussing about what are the new solutions, new India, the innovative methods, what are we learning from the global market, and we're going to have an interesting talk today. Thank you.
I think that's so well said because, you know, the inclusivity that needs to exist for mental health. Because in any workplace, some of us don't understand those who are mentally ill or don't understand those who may be suffering mental impairment. Now, inclusivity and diversity means embracing those who may not be mentally even in the same space as we are. And so that teaches us tolerance, that teaches us coexistence, to include those who may not be mentally as in the same place as we are. So I think that's again a very important learning. And Sudha, now, you as a technology professional for many, many years, you were telling me very interestingly how you're trying to design specifically technological tools by which you can bring in diverse groups into the workplace.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And again, welcome to everyone. And I'm having a fangirl movement with you and her here. So thanks to Analytics India for organizing this. And, you know, I think for me personally, from a personal experience, diversity kicked in many years back when I was in the mid-management. And you know, you have these dinner events where you meet the executive leader, where if you're a top talent, you get invited. So it was one of those events where, you know, I was invited. I was super excited that I'm getting there. And then once I went there, you know, I thanked the leader who nominated me. And I said, thank you, you know, I'm really happy that I'm here and so on. And then he's like, oh, you know what? I just wanted some diversity representation. That's why you're here. So obviously the dinner didn't go as planned because then I was upset and I was not at the stage where I would reiterate or, you know, I would just retort back. And then once I got home, it got me thinking that I've got to make that change personally for myself and also, you know, give that back, right, either as technologically or even culturally as well. But there were three things which came up, right? The first thing was you deserve the seat where you are, irrespective. Don't allow anyone to say, you know, that you don't deserve that position over there. You worked for it, you deserve it, irrespective of your gender, your race, the numerous pronouns that we have, irrespective of all of that, right? So that's my lesson one. And my lesson two was you break those rules which are actually taking you back there. But
right.
to do these two, you know, as she said, you need a very supportive community.
Yes,
and you have got to build that community. And I think my journey towards that started there, right, where we are helping organizations with respect to not only looking at it from an experience perspective, but also looking at it from an employee engagement, an employee experience, where you foster that relationship of inclusivity. And that's my personal charter. I have, like, you know, been a mentor for many, and I have great mentors, some of whom are seated somewhere here, who've helped me grow in that career. And I think we do it in both ways, where, you know, we kind of show that we have that open door culture where, you know, you can come and talk to me, maybe consciously or unconsciously we are doing that bias, but then you try to, you know, break that thing. And you ensure that you measure that success in a more technical fashion, not just like, you know, I've got a checklist. No, that doesn't work
I think
anymore.
that's so well said, the inner biases.
Absolutely.
Right? We all have inner biases. We're all checking boxes.
Absolutely.
You know, is somebody talking the right way or looking the right way or coming from the right place where I'm comfortable.
Correct.
And it's often a fight against oneself and one's own
Absolutely.
biases. And I think that's where the journey has to begin. And I'm going to come to Dhanya to say lots of important things about community transformation and transformation of the ecosystem as a whole. But before that, I'm going to come to Shankar and ask him, what does diversity mean for you? I know you've worked in diversity for many, many years, and how can technology enable it?
And thank you. First of all, really honored to be here. And for me, diversity is very simple. I grew up in a very small town, village. And, you know, many a times when you see a lot of good talents are out there, but they don't get the necessary, you know, opportunity. And why not? Then, you know, people tend to associate themselves with similar backgrounds, and it becomes very difficult for people to crack that inner circle, right? So that is for me starting point. What are you able to do to break that, right? I am in a position of a fairly senior leader in an organization that supports 50% right now, we're talking in this crowd, 50% of the population is women, 50% are men, but in the workforce we don't have that kind of representation. Why not? And that's how the starting point is, what all we are trying to do for addressing it, not just what all the measures that you are trying to make sure people are represented from the gender. The other aspect that we are also looking at, rural places, a lot of talent is there. Why all of the people have to be in the metros? Why can't we hire people from other set of backgrounds? So that was very passionate for me. So then I had the opportunity to work in inclusion and diversity for Visa. I'm an engineer. I lead an engineering team. But in a position where for Visa, what we are trying to do to attract a diverse talent. So I'm very passionate about and fortunate to have worked with a lot of NGOs. Many of them are there here probably. Giftabled, Enable India. So we partner with other organizations to make sure that we get a good set of representative people in the workforce. So that's what I do, and that's what diversity means for me.
So incrementally, workplace by workplace, we change minds, we get in different people, we recruit new people, and we try and become role models for others.
Provide an opportunity for somebody whom we can bat for.
Who you can bat for. And Dhanya, now, we've all been fans of yours for many, many years. I've read about you extensively before we met. Tell us about your journey, and also you were saying very interesting things to me earlier about self-advocacy and changing mindsets in the community. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Very warm good evening. Thank you, firstly, such a beautiful environment and wonderful people around. Answering to the question, I was just, while every one of us over here was just speaking about diversity, I was just taking back of my life a few years ago. I'm a person who never heard what diversity means. Coming from there, I would say that for me, I'm just starting from that personal experience, and maybe then I can just tap onto it'll answer your question. So I come from a very traditional family, and importance of education, my parents were not aware, and being a person with disability, oh no, not really required, and all of that. So it was like for a very long time.
How was the schooling experience for you?
For a very long time, I was actually kept at home, and inclusiveness was not there, even on special schools during my age of learning. And it was like a neighboring auntie who came and then taught me from school academic books. So my schooling was homeschooled, and I'm just speaking from that space of what awareness and sensitization means. So at the age of, so my condition is that till 15 years my bones break, and after that it's gradually normal. So I just started to pick myself up from that age, 15, 16 years. And until then it was more of hospitals and all of that. But when I really got on myself outside through internet, like for me the world was through internet from my room, and I actually doesn't even know what diversity means at that point in time. Inclusion was something I know about it because here and there I was part of some community people and all of that. It's important to be included and all of that. But beyond that, as she said, the inner bias, importance of working on that part first, and then the external part and all of that was something that came through the experience. So self-advocacy, as then I started to do, I feel, especially now, like she said, wishing to be an entrepreneur and being in a community where we are very much dominated and powered by people and influence, and things aren't that easy. So I've been rejected at many workplaces because firstly I was not out, secondly I had lack of education, and but I had some expertise in me. There was a skill where I was able to communicate well. There was a skill where I was able to identify people's talent, mentoring, and there was a set of skills that I had some strength in me. But each time when I really looked on to companies, they really said, no, we will not be able to take you because the mainstream education was not there. I really feel like down the 5 years or 6 years, there's a drastic changes, and
Right.
maybe until then, no. It's a very powerful, dominated world itself
Right.
until then.
And just in terms of physical surroundings, all of us who, who work in workplaces or go to recreational places or wherever we are in public places, what would you like to see? I mean, this is at the very baseline, simple level. What would you basically like to see in public places, workplaces, offices, restaurants, as a matter of course, that these things should be there in places? We saw that there's a ramp here, right? What else would you like to see as a matter of course?
I think an accessible audit is the right answer
The
for
accessible
that.
audit.
Even when I say there is a ramp here, I would say that it's not perfectly measured.
Right.
The ramp is very steep. So even then, I think, there is, it's so, I feel, but definitely, that this is the change. From the
Right.
steps, we have come to ramp.
We have at least come to ramp. At
Yeah.
least we have ramp. But and you were talking about a universal design, right? There's a
Absolutely, yeah.
universal design. Now, do you feel that, as a matter of course, in architecture, when new structures are built, when public places are built, they should all conform absolutely to this new universal design?
I feel, according to, I was just referring a couple of weeks back when I was talking to a company, I was just referring that we, as from the government, we have the data with us and the rules and laws and all of it that is kept. But the reality is that somewhere we are not doing it for, it's more of the sake and
Right.
not for the cause or for the right. It's always for the sake that I would say. When you really look on to the accessibility laws, the central government, what it has come, there is a proper dimension and lot of it that has been written and which has been approved also. But,
Right.
But yes, largely I'm very happy with the state of improvement.
Right.
I mean, it's not a complaining or a blaming job, but I feel it's very important for all of us, even when we say diversity has been the topic today, even women who are entrepreneurs, or even it's not just the big companies that has to look on to diversity.
Right.
Even from the startup, we can still see or look on to how we can include persons with different diverse.
Right, so startups and big companies and city infrastructure. What started me on my passion for diversity in many ways is the Nirbhaya incident of 2012. All that girl needed to save herself from that terrible fate was a bus with street light, a well-lit bus.
Yeah.
If there had been a well-lit, open window bus, they would not have been able to attack her in that way. She would have been safe. If there was urban infrastructure, if there were more buses, more well-lit buses, more well-lit roads, women would be so much safer and therefore have access to public spaces, have access to streets, have access to a nightlife. I'm wondering, Sudha, as to follow on from what Dhanya is saying, that how open are offices to changing their plans? And let's talk about this on two levels. How open are people? Are people open to, changing their office structures around to fit the universal design? Is that something you find that people are open to? And how difficult is it to also change mindsets?
Yeah, I think definitely, as Dhanya rightly said, over the past 5-6 years, there's been a lot of change. For whatever reason, that drastic change has happened. And most organizations are trying to be, inclusive and ensure that they have the infrastructure which supports. but I really don't know if it's as per the industry norms or, as per the international standards in terms of the ramp that we just discussed,
Yes.
right? But at least the effort is being made, and I think that in itself is a critical move towards it. But it's not enough, because
Right.
how does that person get to the office, Because you don't have that many ramps which is coming in from your main tech park till the building to go up, right? So let's think about that as well. And the other thing is about a mindset change, which has to come internally, and that's a culture which an
How does
organization
one
has to
create
foster.
that mindset change?
Yeah.
I'm interested to know. Dhanya was talking about going into the community. How does one do it? Workshops, awareness, showing movies. How does one change people's minds about inherent biases?
So, if I can?
Yeah,
take that
please.
question. Yeah, sure. So I think one solution does not fit. I can resonate with what Danya had mentioned, right? So I think Sudha talked about compliance versus mindset. We don't want to do a checkbox item. So things such as, for example, every organization there will be some passionate people, and speak up, right? And then say that hey, it is not there. Why? What does it take for us to do X or Y? 100% guaranteed that people will take action. Sometimes they would have not thought about it, but now we want to adapt. It's not a question of cost or anything. People will be able to change it. That is number one. Number two is do the end-to-end process. Sensitization workshops definitely help, and we may not be experts. Lean on other people, other organizations who would have done it earlier than you, or some NGOs who are specialists in that, and invite them right now. Because I think in the opening remark, I think Times Group where you told about not having ladies restroom right now, right? Right now we are very, very active in recruiting Pride community in our office, right? And it goes to a different topic where transgender people are coming in, what type of restrooms we should be planning to do it. Still, these kind of challenges exist right now. What would have existed 20 years back, 30 years back, we have a different set of problems right now, and we need to keep on adapting. So, and it requires people to go to the grassroots and start thinking, what else could we do, and start to drive. I think that will be my perspectives. No cookie cutter formula.
It's no cookie cutter formula, but you were saying something very interesting, and it struck me just in our informal conversation, that you are increasingly looking at CVs, at resumes, without a name.
No, we don't look at the names.
You don't look at the name at all.
Correct.
And I think that's a wonderful solution. I'm on a scholarship board, and increasingly we are adopting the Hollywood formula of colorblind casting. You have to be blind to dress, look, behavior, accent, all of the outward symbols of whatever it makes you comfortable, and try to assess the human being. So how, when you say this, okay, there must be no more names on resumes. How do people accept it? Is it easy to get through these kind of changes?
So what happens is, it's a complex process, right? It's not as easy as it, because on one side, there are people might have frauds, right? You have to show your certificates at the time of hiring. But what we are making a conscious decision for any senior level jobs, right? We have a slate of resumes, and the recruiters and the hiring managers and the execs are accountable that you have a slate of resumes, not stereotypical, everything is same cookie cutter. We should have a diverse set of resumes and then give everybody a fair shot. Nobody wants to go in the quota, right? Imagine, I think somebody said that, she was so happy she got the job, or she got invited for somebody, and then the person said that, because of diversity I did it. It defeats the purpose. Everybody wants to have a fair shot, right? Every individual. As long as we are able to provide that opportunity, then I think it is fair. I think that's how we are looking at it.
It's the opportunities that matter.
Correct.
It's the opportunities without any kind of qualifications that must come to people.
Correct.
Certain people must not be more qualified to get an opportunity just on the basis of their birth-based privileges.
Correct. Give them a fair chance.
A fair chance. You spoke, Priyanka, about making workplaces psychologically safe. And I think that's a very important concept, because there are many people that work in a workplace. We all gather in public places. We gather in workplaces. And not many of us may be mentally completely okay, right? Many of us may be suffering. After COVID, many are suffering several mental impairments. And this drive to make workplaces psychologically safe, public places psychologically safe, how do we do it?
We'll look at a little bit of a statistics here. Let's have a show of hands, right? How many of us have taken physical sick leave offs from work? Let's be honest. Come on, I can see more hands. Yeah? Okay. How many of us have taken mental health day leaves?
Really, that's interesting.
Right? I think
That's
that's sweet.
interesting.
How many of us have identified with a co-worker or somebody that we know who has identified themselves as LGBTQI? Okay. How many of us have identified those with a neurodivergent condition? How many of us know that one of our peers, one of our co-workers, our team is going through a mental health condition? How many of us here have sought out for therapy? Thank you for those hands, but it was just to have an estimate that each one of us here are seated with a mental health condition or with somebody else around us who are experiencing that. What do the statistics
Just this exercise
Yeah.
is so valuable. I just think this exercise is so valuable. I just learned a lesson here. I'm going to go back to my office and try this.
Okay.
I just think this exercise, wasn't this valuable? I mean, how many of us have taken a mental health day off? How many of us have identified a neurological disorder? I think this question and saying it to a group of people and asking them to weigh in on this is so valuable. It's so important. It's such an important dialogue to have. It's something that people may not even think about.
Absolutely.
Because it is invisible,
Yes.
right? So we need to draw upon that and then get it together.
Because people who are mentally ill may be just as ill as somebody who's physically ill, except that as Shankar said, you can't see it.
But also everyone, I think because this was a safe space, we were
Yes.
all frank.
So
and I
we've
think that's
created
good
a
environment.
psychologically safe
Exactly.
space.
Yeah.
Not be judgmental.
Not being judgmental.
And also had a show of hands.
Right.
And Dhanya, when you went into the community, you said, you had to work in the community. Who helped you? Did you just do it on your own? How did you find the resources to become a self-advocate?
I'm generally a happy person, and when I really went into the community, I kind of, saw peer group of people who actually go through the similar challenges of mine, and they feel that their existence doesn't matter. So this actually triggered me, and that's a space where I felt like, why is that we both or we three or we four or we as a community going through same challenges, and I feel, hey, I'm okay, and the others feel that at some point in time they cannot contribute. That's what the feeling keeps them, and that's when I really started to go out of my box, in terms of convincing my parents that I need to go out and meet people. I know they come up from their own concerns of safety and all of that, but there is this emotional thing also playing in the family, and so it was very difficult for me. Sometimes being told I'm stubborn, or maybe sometimes a lot of name labels of all of that I've got, but I really feel no, the help what I got was maybe some 3 mentors who actually changed my life. I think their decisions of supporting me, maybe when I go out financially, they support for my travel, and I go to the meetings and all of that I learn. And so that kind of as I said, I didn't have a mainstream schooling and thing, but the mentors actually played a huge role. And this actually kept me on my toes to be a self-advocate. And I would say from the past, again 4 to 5 years, when I started getting a financial independent in a humble way, I also could contribute to my family, I could stand for myself, and there's a lot of value added I saw based on like, just coming up from this, the importance of diversity is not just for the society or for the nation. I think it largely helps for the self. That's where I would say.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I could see like around 15 years, my family or the relatives or even the neighbors who just like come and ask, hey Danya, are you okay? Do you eat on your hair? And do you actually take bath? And all of that. And all crazy questions. And maybe down the line when all of a sudden they saw me coming my articles on the paper or maybe some videos on YouTube, the perspective itself changed. And they like come and discuss about various topics to me, and like even those relatives who once never even approached my parents started talking to me. So
Right.
they're like, hey, how did you create that relationship with them now? So even they get surprised. So I feel the kind of value system, like definitely today morning I was just talking to my friend that being valued, actually it starts from our own analyzing and
Yeah.
our own validation ultimately. But sometimes I was just telling, hey, if I kind of lose my job or maybe I'm not in that sector, I think I'll just not been existed. That's how the
Right.
people label us. So diversity for me, it is not just happening for others. It happens for oneself.
Yes.
And
It's not just a
oneself.
word.
Yes.
It's not just a word. I mean, and you are so admirable. I can't tell you. I mean, you're just so composed. You're smiling. You can laugh about people who asked you about having a bath. I mean, it's incredible, your spirit. You know what? The point that diversity is not a word is absolutely true, because a big statistic should bother us. This statistic that should bother us is India's missing women. Women are dropping out of the workplace. In 2005, 26% of the workplace was women. In 2019, it's fallen to 20%. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are at 30%. There's a survey which has shown that less than 1/3 working age women are actively even looking for work. Now, I'm sure there are many among you, I mean, I see lots of women here, who have found that they have had to bear the brunt of the COVID downturn and the lockdown, because women have been disproportionate sufferers in the post-COVID downturn. Women have been rationed out of good jobs. Women have had to stay at home. Women have had to bear cultural attitudes. Women have had to drop out of the workforce. So for how many of you, for all the women sitting here, is this a reality, that women have suffered more in terms of job losses during the COVID time? Can I have a show of hands? Is that not true? Right. So in this particular case, I guess the women have not suffered. But across the board, the statistics show that actually it's women that are bearing the brunt of the downturn. So we need to encourage many more women to come into the workplace and many more women to actually enter the workforce. And is a part of this, Priyanka, this what you said about making it psychologically safe, and also recognizing that, there are certain moments in the month, perhaps, that women can't function up to par. There may be times when women need the maternity leave. There may be time when they need to go, when they need to be out of. How can we work on employers so that they understand that these attributes that women sometimes face in the workplace are not weaknesses? It shouldn't be that women are going to do this and women are going to do that. They're going to take time off. They're going to go on leave. They're going to, not turn up for work. So I'd much rather hire a man. We need this mindset, particularly about women's health. The awareness of women's health and how best to manage it, that too needs to change.
Absolutely. If we look at two keywords that we want to take from here for a perspective shift, I would definitely like to say that start with self-disclosure. When you start with self-disclosure, you start normalizing these conversations. There have been organizations in the recent past that have sought out menstrual cycle leaves. there is a shift. There is a change. How much are we embracing it? How many of us are taking it? Because it's not a question of our capability, it's a question of self-care. If we took a mental health leave, we would feel guilty. We'd say, was it really worth it? A patient yesterday, who's a pilot, was telling me, I could have taken that 7-hour flight. I don't think I need to take that leave. Priyanka, can you tell me what is the difference between this self-care, self-love? I'm a little confused now after therapy, right? It's a very valid question. But are we willing to bring about that change within us, and that perspective shift is very important. The more we normalize these conversations on a day-to-day basis, and most importantly, ask for help.
And you know, the other point, of course, is about the leaders in the workplace, right? Women leaders, LGBTQ leaders, leaders from diverse communities. So can we have leaders or encourage leaders to come forward who by their life and their journey can be role models for others?
Absolutely, and I think many organizations are having that inclusivity, and you know, as you were saying at PISA, how they're having a lot of these changes which are happening, and I think it starts from the leaders. And you know, Indra Nooyi says it beautifully, especially for women, right, that our biological clock and our career clock are always in conflict.
Yes.
You know, when you just listen to that mid-management is when, you know, the concept of marriage or childbirth and all of that starts, and then you're forced to take that leave, right?
Yes.
And then you come back, then by then, you know, your kids have grown up and you have to, you know, help them with their 10th grade or 12th grade. So it's always that conflict. And I think when you have leaders who are embracing that, who are understanding and who bring that as part of the culture, that's when, you know, it kind of trickles down and everyone, you know, accepts it. But as Priyanka beautifully said, it starts with us.
It all
right?
starts
with
with us.
the self.
And then we were talking, Shankar, very interestingly about the informal networks that are so difficult to break, you know, those informal networks. We were talking earlier about what I call the glass club, you know, the glass ceiling. This is not the glass ceiling, but the glass ceiling, glass. You know, because the men go after work, they have their glasses, and they all sit over their glasses and they form the glass club. And the women can't join that glass club because they have to go back, you know, and look at home and look after, you know, look after whatever. And the men become part of this glass club, which is an informal network of boys who are generally the same school, the same college, they speak the same language. More importantly, they make the same jokes. And they make the same jokes that are sort of slightly misogynist. The misogynist joke is a very fundamental bond between men, right? So if you make a joke and you're drinking in the same drink and you're making you have the same Bollywood memory of the same heroine, then, you know, you immediately bond in a way that becomes a tight male group. No woman can enter that group after that. And this bonding happens outside of the workplace, right? So we can have our diversity and inclusion in the workplace, but outside the workplace, they're doing glass club and glass ceiling bonding. So, and no woman can enter that because there are societal constraints, there are logistical constraints, there are cultural constraints, there are family constraints. Social constraints is if you go and join the glass club, you'll immediately be, you know, stigmatized and labeled and called names and all of that. So, and I found this as a journalist, you know, that all of the deals, the real deals between men, the real networking is all done at 9 p.m. in the press club between groups of glass club members. So now, and these informal networks, I mean, this is how it works across professions. These informal networks actually become exclusive. They can ostracize, they can keep out, and they can also be very hostile to those who are not part of the same conversation group and the same cultural group. How can we make people sensitive to this informal, exclusionary network that can take place outside work hours?
fantastic observation, and
I hope you're not a member of the Glass Club. Are you
I
a
do.
member of the Glass Club?
I don't drink, you know that. I don't drink, and so one of the things, I think what Sagarika, what we heard is what we are seeing in reality. So one of the things that we can look at it, is it difficult to change the bigger process? Can we do a parallel process? So one of the things, how many of you, show of hands, have a mentor or a sponsor who is a male employee for you?
Yeah.
Right? So in any people who are working in a large corporates, right now what we are doing, I have a reverse mentor. Right now, I have some millennials, I have to work with them. So we have reverse mentoring happening as a process of structured process. We mentor employees, and we also have reverse mentoring. It can be gender mentoring, other aspects. So many of you who have raised your hand, who have male employees as a sponsor or a mentor, you have to bring it up. What are the opportunities? What does this informal network, as the Glass Club, we talked about, is it gives you a kind of trust, right? You feel that, hey, he is part of my club, meaning you are including them not on the notion of merit, can we trust this individual, right? That kind of parallel trust, because if you have 9 to 5 job, people want to know people so that they feel comfortable to work with. But you don't have to be in the part of a member of a Glass Club. Can you have sponsors? Can you take an opportunity? For example, there is a project that's coming up, and you want to assign the most shiny object. Many people want to raise your hand. Can you take a chance to give somebody who is underrepresented? You as a manager, you have an opportunity to take a bet on them, take a risk on them, or be a safety support. That many of the employees or the male colleagues can do it. So that is one opportunity where systematically it can get to change. But it's a bigger problem. It's a reality, and we have to address it, and it takes time, right? That's my assessment. But many of the organizations right now are very, very progressive, and we want to meritocratic-based decisions are happening, and not necessarily the stereotypical behind the scenes what is happening. And we have checks and balances in place. Any of the decisions, corporate decisions, for example, we'll have a diverse set of groups who will be making the decision. It's a panel of people, and that panel will be very well dispersed. Gender diversity will be there, people from other regions, when you have to make a decision. So it's not like one person we got an edge for them. So that's something what we have to look at, alternate ways how to address such situations. These are some of the examples I can think of.
Yes, I think that's interesting that, if there are Glass Clubs happening in the evening, we can create parallel clubs within the workplace that can counter that kind of trust-building mechanism. I think that's very interesting. Just as a last point, time's up is blinking there. LGBTQ, how successful are organizations in your experience in bringing in more LGBTQ into the workplace?
I think I've been lucky in that space because the organizations that I've worked have been very inclusive. We've had allyship, where you have these ally programs and mentor programs, irrespective of whatever it is, and a lot of awareness campaigns around that as well. So I think, as he said, there are many progressive organizations which are accepting that, which is a good thing and which is the biggest change, right?
And I'm going to ask you, Dhanya, to give us a last word. What would you like to see more happening?
One thing, just a simple thing, that if you're looking for a breakthrough, innovations, new discoveries, then diversity is the key. I really don't completely echo with the kind of experience that you went through, Times or Nirbhaya or myself, because I really feel a person's sufferings or the life-going part of it should not be the reason for someone to build an innovation.
Right.
Rather, if we are together with different mindset, being gender biased and completely biased in every way, I think that's where the breakthrough happens. And new innovations, infrastructure, universal design, all of it comes from there. And let not any of the sufferings be the solution for someone to create something.
Sufferings should not be the solution, should not spur solutions. Solutions should arise from diversity and the clash of energies that happen from diverse people, and they should spur new innovations and new experiments. That's very well said. I think this has been a really fascinating discussion. Thank you so much to all the panelists for joining me. I think we can have a few questions, I guess.